Tonight, a person has died in a single vehicle crash at Wallaroo, as SAPOL pleads with drivers to stay safe. And more detail needed. Rowan Ramsey says Anthony Albanese needs to be clearer when it comes to the Indigenous Voice to Parliament referendum.
From our 7 Spencer Gulf studios, your nightly news with Madeline Kerr begins now.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. A person has died in a horror single vehicle crash in Wallaroo. The death adding to what has been a horrendous start to the month on South Australian roads, with multiple serious and fatal crashes reported across the state. SAPOL was called to the intersection of Irwin Street and Heritage Drive just before 11 a.m, after reports came in that a car had left the road and collided with a tree. The area was blocked off for some time and traffic diverted elsewhere as emergency services worked to get the driver and sole occupant out of the car. South Australia Police Assistant Commissioner Ian Parrott had this to say earlier this afternoon.
A 49-year-old local male has lost their life when their vehicle left the road and collided with a tree. Of the deaths that have occurred so far in this year, the drivers are the people who have died, and our initial investigations indicate that they are largely at fault for their own demise. Don't think just because you live in the area and you know the road that you can take additional risks, because you will come unstuck.
Assistant Commissioner Ian Parrott speaking there about the shocking number of lives lost on our roads so far this year, and it's only February. Meantime, there was a similar crash just outside of Whyalla this morning, but lucky for the occupants and other road users, not nearly as severe. Our reporter Edward McCarroll was on the scene.
It was here along the Lincoln Highway where 2 motorists were rushed to hospital in the early hours of this morning. At 8:20, a grey SUV leaving Whyalla veered off the road before coming to a stop in a dramatic smash. Colliding with a tree, the front of the vehicle was torn apart. Police and paramedics raced to the Middleback Ranges scene, locating and responding to a man and woman within the car. Emergency services believe the man driving may have experienced a medical episode. Both occupants were taken to the Whyalla Hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, while police and tow truck crews remain to pick up the pieces. Road restrictions have since been removed, with traffic along the Lincoln Highway once again flowing freely. The incident comes amid a horror week on South Australia's regional roads, with fatal collisions reported at Port Wakefield and She Oak Log, while the crash at Two Wells has left a woman in a critical condition. Police advising motorists to take care when travelling on the highway and pay attention to others sharing the road.
Edward McCarroll reporting there, thank you. Meantime, Member for Grey Rowan Ramsey has called for more details on the federal government's Indigenous Voice to Parliament ahead of the planned referendum later this year. He says Australians could vote against it if they don't understand what the voice actually is. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been standing firm on the issue, saying Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders deserve to be recognised in the Constitution, as have all heads of government who have signed their support at today's National Cabinet meeting.
With national discussion of the upcoming referendum on the Indigenous Voice to Parliament well underway, Member for Grey Rowan Ramsey is so far unimpressed with the federal government's actions.
I have to say, I don't think the government's campaign is going well in this area, and I've raised these issues myself, as has Peter Dutton, that they're just not giving us enough detail to vote on the voice.
The opposition leader met with the referendum working group earlier this week, and while he says there are more answers needed, he did commit to further meetings. The Prime Minister urged Mr Dutton to have an open heart when meeting with the referendum group and address people's confusion on radio with 2 words.
Recognition and consultation.
Great.
Simple as that. Recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our Constitution. They're not recognised. And then consultation, just that where matters are going to impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, we consult them.
The Prime Minister, along with all Premiers and Chief Ministers, including the two Liberal Premiers, re-signed their agreement backing the Indigenous voice to Parliament at the National Cabinet meeting today.
I don't see it as a political issue. This is an issue that we agree with in principle, and it should be above politics. It should be a moment which unites the country, doesn't divide the country.
The legislation on the referendum is expected to be introduced next month, and the referendum itself will be held for a public vote in the second half of this year. The Prime Minister saying this is too much of an opportunity to miss. Daniel Pizarro, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
This week, history was made as landmark voluntary assisted dying laws came into effect across the state. But the question has to be asked, will regional South Australians have equal access to the services? Annabel Francis spoke with the experts.
News many South Australians have been waiting for.
For decades and decades, there have been South Australians who have wanted to have choice about dignity at the end of their life, who haven't been able to do so. From today, that completely changes.
From February the 1st, all eligible South Australians over the age of 18 with a terminal illness has a choice at the end of their life. The process to get to this point has been a long one, after 16 previous attempts in the past 27 years.
Huge number of protections in place that the Parliament have insisted upon. We've got all the work and resources and staff needed to make this work now.
More than 70 doctors have now been registered and are undertaking mandatory training. But members of the public are asking, is this enough? Especially for those living in regional and remote areas. The Voluntary Assisted Dying Review Board have taken this into account.
You can contact the Care Navigator service and have a discussion with the Care Navigator, who's also a health practitioner, and they can help find a medical practitioner for you if needed as well.
You can also talk to someone about any questions you have about the service.
And also for people in rural and regional areas, those consulting appointments with the doctors who can talk to you about voluntary assisted dying can occur by telehealth as well.
Annabel Francis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, with 420,000 potholes needed filling, the New South Wales Government dishes out some funding. And teaching students how to emotionally regulate at school. Meet the teachers receiving specialist training. Welcome back. Thousands of new wild dog baits have been distributed across the central and northern Flinders Ranges. Organised by PIRSA and the SA Arid Lands Boards, the project hopes to control the population of both wild dogs and foxes in an effort to protect the native environment. The aerial operation has covered over 300,000 hectares and deployed more than 15,000 wild dog strength baits. The Department of Environment and Water says wild dog numbers are now reportedly at their lowest since 2009. Spencer Gulf construction companies are invited to bid for the tender of major upgrades at Pine Creek Bridge, northeast of Laura. It's part of a $3.6 million project to restore the heavy vehicle freight route along Apilla Laura Road.
Built in the 1940s, Pine Creek Bridge is in the need of some serious maintenance. Too fragile to support the weight of larger trucks, freight is being diverted to avoid the area.
Follow a detour which is over a lot of dirt roads, which of course impacts on their time.
Northern Areas Council is now inviting construction companies to step up and take on the challenge getting the old bridge back to its former glory. Council says this significant project will benefit the whole community.
The decking will be widened and the structure underneath will be strengthened. 2 large trucks can pass on the bridge quite comfortably.
Projects like this are always going to cause short-term inconvenience for the community. And the main thing is the road will still be accessible.
Most of our roads, all the roadworks that are happening, you might have to go slower, but you can still get through. They work around these things.
The joint funding for the project comes from both the South Australian and federal governments. Annabel Francis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
There are few things more heartbreaking than a child suffering from cancer. But a young Port Augusta girl has made a tremendous decision to do her bit to help out by chopping off her hair to make into a wig.
A very small gathering to witness something very special. Isabella Morton getting a haircut at Christy Muir Hairstyling for a good cause.
I wanted to get my hair cut because I wanted to donate my hair to the kids with cancer, and so they have some hair.
Izzy set up a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for Wigs for Kids, an organisation that helps create wigs for children who have lost their hair during cancer treatments.
I feel very great, like how I'm giving it to other people so then they can have some joy with it.
The cost of creating a single wig is hugely expensive, thousands of dollars for a custom-made one, so Izzy's donation will go a long way.
We're so proud of her and the accomplishment she's made. She's raised $1,800 to go towards kids with cancer, so we're very proud.
And the idea was Izzy's in the first place.
She just came out of the blue last year that she thought she would cut her hair. It was time to get rid of all that long hair, and she thought she'd give it to the people that needed it most.
As for Izzy's thoughts on her new do,
weird and happy at the same time.
More information can be found at kidswithcancer.org. Daniel Pizarro, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. PCYC Broken Hill granted $200,000 to extend programs to Wilcannia and Menindee. And the local landscape board calling on the community to help remove an invasive prickly cactus. Welcome back to your local news bulletin. Broken Hill PCYC has received funding to extend outreach programs to remote communities. The state government funding will bring more activities to places like Menindee and Wilcannia.
Making sure children across the far west are getting every opportunity in life through the PCYC. The Deputy Premier announcing the funding yesterday.
When you come to the PCYC clubs, you can see the programs that are actually delivering and making a difference to the lives of people in these communities. And I always believe that young people should be given every chance possible in life.
The funding is set to be used to bring programs such as the club's Fit for Life to communities in Menindee and Wilcannia.
So that means that those communities, those young people out there in Wilcannia and Menindee will also be receiving the same service that is being provided here at Broken Hill.
PCYC New South Wales CEO Dominic Teakle says the funding will help the organisation continue its life-changing work, giving young people the tools to develop life skills and fitness, improving mental and physical strength through these programs.
PCYC sits at the heart of these communities and it provides a safe place for young people to belong. And once the young people feel safe, they can reach their potential, and that's what we're about. So thank you very much for doing this.
PCYC Broken Hill manager Ebony Johnson says the funding is a fundamental part of how the club can run these programs, especially in remote towns in the far west.
It just helps us to deliver programs in, other locations that we wouldn't necessarily be able to without it. So as it stands on our name, we are life-changing, and that's what we're here for.
Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
An invasive prickly weed has been discovered in Nelshaby Reserve. The Northern and York Landscape Board has jumped into action, calling on locals to help out with a working bee before it starts to affect the native flora and fauna.
Nelshaby Reserve is a beautiful part of the mid-north, and it's our responsibility to keep it that way.
That reserve then backs onto the conservation park, so that's why really important that we really do get on top of it now.
This prickly pear cactus can multiply and spread quickly across the landscape, causing destruction in its wake.
They can form quite large thickets that can become really difficult to deal with. A lot of treatment needs to be done for them.
But that's not the only thing that's harmful about them. The cactus has the potential to seriously harm the native wildlife, as the spikes can get caught in the mouth and skin of animals, causing deadly infections. In order to eradicate these nasty weeds, the Northern and York Landscape Board has partnered with the Port Pirie Regional Council to host a working bee at Laurie Park in Nelshaby on Friday the 24th of February at 10 a.m. until 1 p.m.
If they have cactus present on their properties, they can contact the Landscape Board or office, and they can register their properties to have volunteers or landscape officers go onto their property to inject the cactus for them.
To volunteer or register your property, contact the board on 8658 1086. Annabel Francis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break. Where to catch a squid and whiting in Whyalla, plus the rest of our fishing tips. And a cool change sweeps the Gulf. We'll have the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back. 2 games in round 11 of the Port Lincoln Cricket Association this weekend, and they're on at the same time. Wayback take on Tasmans at Centenary Oval at 12:30, while last place Todd River and third on the ladder Charlton clash at Dorwood Oval, while top of the table Southern Air have the bye. With that, here's this week's cricket tips.
Top game in Broken Hill cricket this week is undoubtedly the West versus North game at the Jubilee Oval. North have certainly improved since the Christmas break and now are vying for minor premiership honours, and this game will go a long way towards determining who will be minor premiers. North recruited a couple of new players since Christmas and also got top bat Eddie Morgan back, so that makes a big difference to the North side, and I think their batting may prove a little bit powerful, too powerful for West this weekend. In the other game, Central take on South. This game also, a berth in the semi-finals is still open between these two sides. I think this will be a very good contest as well. I think Central should start favourites, but they haven't produced the goods this year, and if they falter, then South will certainly capitalise. So another very good game of cricket in Broken Hill.
Hello and welcome back to Whyalla Cricket. This week we only have one game in the A grade, and it's at 1 o'clock between North Whyalla and Rupina. I think it's going to be a really close match. Both teams have been in some pretty good form as of late, but I think I'm going to go North Whyalla in this one. Matt Quist is set for a big total. We also have at 8:30 starting the B grade between the same two clubs. It's the family round, so if you're not doing much on Saturday, get around to Memorial Oval and celebrate the day.
Hello and welcome to round 13 of Port Pirie Cricket. With just 3 weeks to go, things are getting really tight for final spots. On Memorial Oval, we've got Props taking on Southport. Props continue to get the job done and should be the winners in this game. Over at Port Oval, it's a huge game for the Port Germain Sharks who take on Wandera. Germain need a win in this one to keep their slight finals chances alive, because if they lose, that might be the end of the story for them. I'm going to tip the Sharks.
Yeah, g'day and welcome to round 8 of Port Augusta Cricket. This week we see West Augusta take on Quorn at Chinnery. Now, both these sides I picked to lose last week, but they ended up both winning, so this should be a good match. Although the match is played on West home ground, I'm going to still lean towards Quorn to beat West. The other match sees South Augusta take on Centrals at Etzer. This should be another good match as well, because these two sides have been sitting top first and second. I'm going to lean towards South Augusta to beat Centrals. Okay, so they're all my two winners, Quorn and South.
Can't win them all, but we'll see how those predictions play out on Monday's bulletin. But it's time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather with Alex Sykes. Alex, a bit of rain around Port Pirie this morning.
There was, Maddie, not a huge amount, but enough to make a dent in the gauges. Since 9 a.m, around 1.5 millimetres have been recorded, in addition to the 18 or so that fell overnight. Temperature-wise, Port Pirie peaked later in the day, 21 degrees. Woodney Airport recorded 22 degrees at 4:08, and it was around 22 degrees in Cooper Pedy as well. Looking more broadly at today's weather map now, and lots of 21s and 22s about. 24 in Port Augusta, just 19 in Adelaide. Taking a look at the satellite image now, that cool and fresh southerly airflow will gradually ease across South Australia overnight, while a high pressure system will move south of the Bight over the weekend before moving east on Monday. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. South to southwesterly winds 15 to 20 knots, seas around 1.5 metres, decreasing to 1 metre, and south to southwesterly swell between 2 and 4 metres. A cloudy top of 21 in Port Lincoln tomorrow, partly cloudy and set to reach a high of 22 in Cleve, slightly warmer in Woodna and 25 degrees there. While it'll be cloudy on Saturday and set to reach a top of 22. 1 degree warmer in both Port Augusta and Kadina, heading for a top of 23 degrees. Port Pirie partly cloudy and set to reach a high of 23, 21 in Clare, and a sunny top of 25 in Broken Hill, down to single digits tonight. Taking a look further through the week now, starting with Sunday's forecast, and it's looking like a sunny end to the working week. 29 in Broken Hill and Port Pirie, 30 in Port Augusta and 31 in Woodna. Moving on to Monday's map now, sunny in Port Lincoln, 24 degrees, bit of cloud around Whyalla, set to reach a high of 29 there, 33 in Port Augusta and Port Pirie, Woodna warm and 34. And finally, taking a quick peek into what Mother Nature has in store for Tuesday, and she's giving blue skies across the region. 38 in Cooper Pedy, 36 in Woodna, 35 in Port Augusta, sunny conditions in Port Lincoln as well. And that's all the weather from me for tonight. I'll see you a little later with an update. I hope you have a great weekend, Maddie. It's back to you.
Thanks, Alex. You too. And that's the local news this Friday. I'm Madeline Kerr. From all of us here, thanks for joining us. I'll have updates a little later, but until then, enjoy your evening and stay safe. Good night.